Welcome into 5 Wide Fantasy. Today's video, start and sit wide receivers. We're going through each and every game on the Sunday and Monday slate, helping decide which wide receivers you should start, which wide receivers you can sit. If you guys don't already know, we are on Twitch every Sunday, helping preview the entire Sunday slate, start sit decisions once we get all of our injury information. So join us on Twitch, 11 a.m. on Sundays. That link is down below in the description. And go check out our friends over at BetFred. Bet 50, get 250. Deposit $50. Bet $50. They're going to give you $250 in free bets for NFL this weekend and the rest of the year. So go check out that link down in the description as well. Shout out to our friends over at BetFred. Okay, let's get into the first game. We're in London. Vikings, Saints. Again, now I'm able to use a lot of my information. A lot of the numbers we're going to go to are going to be from this season, not looking as much now at last season. We've got enough data here to go with. Let's start with the Saints side of the ball because that's where there is some injury concern. We've got Michael Thomas. I'm recording here on Thursday afternoon. He did not practice on Wednesday. He did not practice on Thursday. It's a toe injury. I do think he'll be back. I do think he'll be ready to play. They're obviously in London here. A little bit of an interesting situation for them in terms of preparation. Jarvis Landry limited in practice on Thursday. I think both of these guys will play, but I think the most faith I'll have in is Chris Olave. Olave has been great the last few weeks. What is it? Back-to-back 10-plus target weeks here in weeks 2 and 3. So he's someone I'm definitely playing. I'll probably want to play Michael Thomas too in a matchup against this Saints secondary that I don't have a ton of respect for. Their pass rush is pretty good, but they're 20th in passing DVOA. Their coverage grade is below 60 from PFF. So this could be a good chance, even with Jameis Winston still banged up, that they can move the ball through the air. Vikings side of things, honestly, the Saints pass rush isn't great, so that should give an opportunity for Kirk to have some time. I'm looking to play Justin Jefferson. Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne are players that I'd be a little bit worried about. I do like the Saints secondary here. So Jay Jettis is the guy I'm looking to start. I'm probably looking to sit Adam Thielen and KJ Osborne in this one. All right, let's move to the next game here. Bears, Giants. This game is a battle of the two teams that have earned the least respect as 2-1 on the season. These teams are both frauds. They're definitely not teams I expect to be above 500 this season. Very interesting, though, in terms of two teams that have poor pass protection but are going up against two of the worst teams in the NFL in terms of pass rush. So an opportunity to be able to have some time in the pocket for these QBs, both Daniel Jones and Justin Fields, and make some plays in the air. Daniel Jones is definitely a guy I'm willing to stream this week and play. So that means a guy like Richie James, if I'm in a deeper league, is someone I could go to with the Giants injury situation. Tony, Wan'Dale, Shepard out for the year. The other two haven't been practicing so far this week. So Richie James looks to be the number one option. Someone, if you do need to, I could play in a pinch. But beyond that, just with the way these two teams play, the Bears run the ball so much, and the clock can kind of tick away here, and there's not going to be a ton of plays and a ton of volume in this game. He'd be the only guy I'd be willing to play from the Giants side of things. Kenny Golladay, David Sills, not really options for me. Bears side of things, again, this team's running the ball on 65% of plays. I just can't play any of these guys, even in a good matchup. Maybe, I know we're talking wide receiver here. The best guy I'd go to and be willing to play would be Cole Kmet because it's a good matchup for them passing wise. But there's just not enough volume here to be able to play a Darnell Mooney, even in a good matchup. So that's the thoughts on Giants Bears, which should be an interesting game with a very low betting total. Seahawks, Lions. I got my first piece of the BetFred Boost this weekend is in this game. I really like the Seahawks here. I think the Lions are being very overrated right now. They have one of the worst coverage grades in the NFL. I think the only one worse, or maybe there's one or two in between them, the Lions and Seahawks, two terrible pass defenses. What I really like here is the Lions love to blitz. They have the highest blitz rate in the NFL. Geno Smith has actually been fantastic against the blitz. Very, very good. Got a really high completion percentage, thrown for over, I believe, 240 yards on combined in his outings against the blitz. And this could be a really good matchup for him. Tyler Lockett's seen plenty of volume through the last 2 weeks. I believe he's had 9+ targets the last 2 weeks. I really like him here. I really like him. I'm definitely starting him. I'm playing DK Metcalf. The Lions or the Seahawks are throwing the ball a ton. It doesn't make sense. Like, we had Russell Wilson under Pete Carroll and they didn't want to throw it. And now we got Geno Smith. I know this team is now not as good, so the game script lends them to more throwing the ball. They're doing it. They're throwing it a ton. Their pace of play isn't too bad. So I'd play DK Metcalf. I'd play Tyler Lockett in this matchup. Lions side of things, Amon-Ra St. Brown hasn't been practicing the first 2 days of practice, Wednesday and Thursday. Obviously, you're watching this Friday. I don't know. I would expect him to play. I'd be surprised if he doesn't play. So if he is available, we saw him come back from the injury and play last week and be just fine. So I would be willing to play him in this spot against the Seahawks. And deeper wise, you had Reynolds with the bigger game last week. You have DJ Chark. In the case that he doesn't play, let's say, I do think DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds would be okay starts in your deeper formats. All right, let's go to Eagles-Jaguars. So the Jags, let's start on their side of the ball. The Jags have had a really good start here. Now they're going up against an Eagles defense that has been very good, both in the pass rush and in coverage. They got the third best passing DVOA in the NFL right now. So this is a tough matchup if they want to move the ball through the air. I'm playing Christian Kirk purely on the fact he's got great volume and he's the end zone look. He's the end zone look for Trevor Lawrence. Zay Jones, the guy I really liked off the wire. I probably am not looking to play him in this matchup against the Eagles. Very good defense, and the best chance I think for this Jags offense may be on the ground for them. So that's everything on the Jags side. Eagles side is where things get interesting. I think the Eagles will be able to move the ball through the air here. What makes the Jags so good is they're the best rushing DVOA in the NFL through 3 weeks. They're great at stopping the run, and that comes down to Travon Walker, Josh Allen, Devin Lloyd. Great front seven they have here, man. So problem is, I don't like their coverage unit. They don't have a lot of talent in the secondary, the Jags, and the Eagles have the best pass pro in the NFL right now. So I think you can play Devontae Smith, who's coming off a big week. I don't think you're ever really considering sitting him. You got to ride him while he's playing this well. I don't know if this will continue. Him and A.J. Brown are definitely players I'm starting in this game, no doubt about it. Jets Steelers. So we move on from the Joe Flacco reign. We're on to Zach Wilson. Do I think it's going to be an improvement in their offensive performance? I don't know, but the Jets have one of the highest passing rates in the NFL right now. They're throwing the ball a ton. Garrett Wilson is a weekly start. He seems to be the guy that they're scheming up the ball to. Who knows if that changes with Zach Wilson, but I am willing to play Elijah Moore as someone that Wilson obviously has some more rapport with. We haven't seen Elijah Moore hit those big plays. His air yards are there. His routes run are there. It's only a matter of time. He snuck over our receiving total last week by a yard, so didn't have a great fantasy performance, but in terms of on the betting side, he did hit. So I am willing to play those two guys here against the Steelers who, without TJ Watt, can they take advantage of a very poor Jets pass protection? I'm not so sure. And they're 23rd in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. So a chance for the Jets passing offense to continue to give us that volume, and maybe we can get a big week from Elijah Moore here too. Steelers side of things. Jets defense, 32nd in passing DVOA. Last in the league, 25th in fantasy points allowed to the position. I'm definitely looking to play, I'm definitely starting Deontay Johnson. In no scenario, unless I'm in a 16 league, am I sitting Deontay Johnson in this game. I really like what they can do. The pass pro for the Steelers has actually looked a fair bit better. So I think they can take advantage of a pretty poor coverage unit from the Jets. Otherwise, you could make a desperate play on, if you still have Chase Claypool. I did think he was a drop. I wrote about it on the blog. He's running too much from the slot now, which is a huge change. Usually he's a guy that, we don't rely on week in and week out, but can hit us with some explosive plays. But now he's moved to the slot with Juju gone, and we're not getting great volume, and you're less likely to hit explosive plays from the slot. So he's a bit of a scarier play. I'd probably be more looking at like George Pickens as the other guy on the outside who probably won't draw Ahmad Gardner. But again, I think it's really only Deontay Johnson and a Pat Freiermuth would be your kind of your options here from the passing perspective from the Steelers. All right, Browns, Falcons. Not high on the list in terms of priority of what I'm watching this weekend, but we got to get into it and cover a few fantasy relevant players here. The Browns defense hasn't been as good as I thought it would be. They're 27th in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. Their overall passing DVOA, 21st in the NFL. So in this spot, I do think Drake London, is the highest volume player in this offense. I think you can still play him this week. I do think the Browns passing defense is better than what it's been. They've had a few miscommunications and allowed some big plays. So I'm a little bit weary, but I think if I'm listing some other options you guys have that I'm a little bit more excited about, certainly play them over him, but certainly can be a guy you can still play this week. I'm not absolutely off him, but a little bit lower on him. Kyle Pitts, the tight end spot, you're going to be playing him. There's no really way around Kyle Pitts, and if you drafted him, you're playing him. Brown side of things, I do feel confident in being able to play. Why am I blanking right now? Amari Cooper, obviously. Cooper against this Falcons defense that can't really get after the passer. We got a good pass protection from the Browns. If we're seeing AJ Terrell, Amari Cooper matchup, that could be a little tougher. I think he's what kind of holds their pass defense. But again, 24th in passing DVOA are the Falcons. So Amari Cooper is someone I can play. And looking at his volume, I think you can still rely on him. All right. Titans Colts. This is a matchup that the Titans, maybe they can move the ball through the air. The Colts have not been able to get after the quarterback. They have one of the worst pass rushing grades in the NFL and haven't been good against the pass, 27th in passing DVOA, but are not allowing too many fantasy points to the position. Titans here, obviously losing Taylor Lewan. Their pass protection has been atrocious. So there's a worry there, and it's hard to trust any of these options. I think in this matchup, I think if you're desperate, Treylon Burks would be your best bet. Kyle Phillips is banged up in practice. I just don't trust a guy like Robert Woods. That ACL injury, anyone with that type of injury, I'm usually avoiding the next year. This is a week-to-week basis, but I think Burks is your best option. I probably would still avoid playing him, to be honest. Colts side of things, I'm certainly going to be firing away on Michael Pittman. That's really the only guy to talk about here with this Colts offense that I can say with any confidence. 30th in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position are the Titans. Coverage hasn't been great, so Michael Pittman is someone you can play, certainly with confidence this week. All right, let's get to the boost. Let's get to the BetFred boost. They've boosted this play very, very nicely for us, plus 330. So I mentioned it earlier. I like Tyler Lockett over 64.5 receiving yards this week. Okay, again, I mentioned how good Geno's been against the blitz. Lockett is that guy for him against the blitz. So I think with a Lions defense that likes to blitz a lot and a very poor coverage unit, I think Geno will be able to move the ball with Tyler Lockett as he has the last 2 weeks. My other play, though, Antonio Gibson over 74.5 receiving plus rushing yards. Let me get into why here in this Commanders-Cowboys game. So the Cowboys have the best pass rush, or the second best pass rush in the NFL through the first 3 weeks. They've been unbelievably good. We saw it against the Giants too, weak matchup, but we also saw it against the Commanders. Or not against the Commanders, sorry. We also saw the Commanders struggle in pass pro last week, giving up 8 sacks. Carson Wentz, time to have a conversation, a sit down with Ron Rivera, hey buddy, time to stop hanging on to the football because their pass pro has actually been decent. So a conversation I'm sure had of let's get the ball out quickly. They can run the ball against this Cowboys pass or rushing defense that hasn't been very good this year. And I think they want to get the ball out of his hands quickly. Curtis Samuel's a guy that can help him do that. Antonio Gibson is a guy that can help him do that. So I think they run the ball. I think they get the ball out quickly. Gibson is a beneficiary. I think he has a big day. He's a top 10 running back on the week for me. So I like that parlayed with Lockett receiving yards. Plus 330, they boosted it over at BetFred. So you got that $50 bet you need to make. I would go look at BetFred and go place a wager on these guys individually. And you got your free bets as well, the 250 I mentioned. You can throw that down on this parlay, plus 330. That pays very nicely. So go check that out over at BetFred. Again, link is down below in the description. Everything else here, I mentioned Curtis Samuel. I think he's definitely someone you want to play against this Cowboys defense. I don't think he's going to be drawing too much Trayvon Diggs here. This will definitely be Terry McLaurin drawing that. So that is my worry. I don't want to play McLaurin this week. I think, I know Trayvon Diggs has the ability to give up plenty of yards. He did last season, but he also makes some big plays too. I think the Commanders will get the ball out quickly here in this game. And I like Samuel, definitely a beneficiary there. He's got the highest target volume on the team. And then as well, Logan Thomas could be a decent tight end option. Just like I mentioned, getting the ball out a little quicker. Wentz, just stop hanging on to the ball for forever, man. This team, these guys in this offensive line have to hate the guy because dealing with a quarterback that can't get the ball out and making you look bad when he's giving up 8 or 9 sacks, the guys who don't watch the game are like, wow, this offensive line must suck. It's actually not too bad. Cowboys, Commanders defense, protection, or their coverage is terrible. 31st in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, 28th in passing DVOA. Great matchup for the Cowboys. Of course, we got Cooper Rush at QB, who's been pretty decent stepping in. But I mean, it's hard to rely on a second guy beyond CeeDee Lamb. It looks like Michael Gallup's going to be ready to play this week. He said he sat last week because he wasn't mentally ready to play, which is fair. The guy hasn't played a lot of football in the last 2 years. So I think it's just CeeDee Lamb here in a good matchup. Gallup, I would probably wait on. Looks like Dak is going to be back next week, so we might not have to wait on playing him for too much longer. But I know it's a good matchup, hard to avoid. Maybe if you're in a really tough spot, I'd lean against it, though. All right, Bills-Ravens. Really interesting game here, especially on the passing side, with the fact that the Bills are incredibly banged up in coverage in the secondary. Their pass rush has been phenomenal. It is the best in the NFL so far. 90.8 PFF grade in their pass rush. Been fantastic. They got the second best passing DVOA. This is a tough matchup for the Ravens. I think a lot of this comes down to scheme and how well they're able to defend the pass. I know they lost some guys with injury or have guys out with injury, but I'd still be hesitant to play Rashad Bateman, who is relying on hitting big plays. That is how he's been able to put together some great fantasy finishes so far. So that worries me. I'm not as high on Rashad Bateman this week. On the Bills side, Gabriel Davis, again, banged up, not practicing on Thursday. Status up in the air. Of course, the Ravens have given up the most fantasy points to the wide receiver position. I think a lot of that has come down to they've been up a lot in these games and have been as a result, have had their opponents throwing the ball a ton because they actually don't grade out too badly overall as a defense. They're just facing the pass a ton. So I'm playing Stephon Diggs, but beyond that, if Gabe Davis is healthy, I'm not looking to play him. The Ravens play a ton of sets with 6 DBs on the field. So they like to play too high. They like to have a lot of numbers in coverage, and that's going to limit your explosive plays. I know they gave up some explosive plays to the Dolphins, but I think it's still a point of emphasis here for this defense. So I'm definitely only looking to play Stephon Diggs here. And if you're in a real pinch, because of how Gabe Davis is with the injury, Isaiah McKenzie is probably the second option. So if this game does get to a fast pace and to a shootout, then Isaiah McKenzie could be someone you play if you think that that's how this game is going to play out here. All right, Texans, Chargers. The Chargers, the worst pass protection in the NFL. And now they're down. They've been down Corey Linsley. That's a huge missing piece for them. He might be back this week. It's a knee issue that he's been dealing with and trying to play through, but it's just been bothering him too much. They obviously lost Rashawn Slater for the year, one of the best left tackles in football. That's a problem. Major problem. But good news for them. They go up against a Texans defense that isn't great at getting after the quarterback, so that can be helpful for them to be able to make some plays. But I do think regardless, this scheme with Herbert banged up, they're going to look to get the ball out quickly, and it just doesn't bode well for Mike Williams here. The Texans are a very respectable defense right now. 9th in DVOA. I know they've had some matchups against some struggling teams, namely the Colts have been brutal, and then as well, they had the Bears last week who just don't really throw the ball. But Derek Stingley could be in coverage against Mike Williams here. Honestly, I'm not saying you need to sit Mike Williams, absolutely, but temper your expectations. I think right now he's, with Herbert banged up and with the way this pass pro is, I just don't see Mike hitting big plays too often. So just consider him to be a back-end wide receiver 2, maybe even wide receiver 3. But again, Eckler would be the guy benefiting from the short passes. And even a guy like Josh Palmer here. Palmer had some good volume last week. Someone you can play in a deeper league. I do have a decent amount of confidence here just as a guy that lives more in the slot right now. Texans side of things, offensively. Davis Mills, there was a lot of people thinking Davis Mills could be the guy in Houston. The pass pro's been really good. One of the best pass pros in the NFL right now, but Mills is just not making plays. Now he's going up, though, against the Chargers pass rush that's missing Joey Bosa. J.C. Jackson, that ankle issue, it doesn't seem to be coming together. I don't know if he's going to play this week. I think this is the week Brandon Cooks finally hits for us. It's been a struggle. The target volume's there, but the receptions and the score haven't. I think you can play Brandon Cooks and feel good about it this week. Beyond that, Nico Collins has been decent so far, but I do think the Chargers are still pretty good in the secondary. Haven't been fantastic so far, but that would be as far as I would go with the Texans. All right, Cardinals, Panthers. We're going to let's go to the Panthers first. I do think this is a very, very good passing matchup for them. DVOA wise, Cardinals 30th in the NFL. Coverage grade is 29.6, the worst in the NFL. So DJ Moore, Baker Mayfield. That it's time for this connection to start to start hitting for us. So play DJ Moore this week, and potentially you could play a guy like Robbie Anderson if you're in a deeper league. But again, it's hard to rely on more than one guy in this offense, especially with Christian McCaffrey. McCaffrey could be in for a big game on the receiving front as well. Cardinals side of things, we talked about this in the ads. I do think in this matchup that Greg Dortch is a great option. Rondale Moore was on the practice field on Wednesday. It's the first time he's really been out there. I would be surprised if he truly is ready. Like maybe he can fit in for some snaps and get on the field. Don't think he's going to have any impact on guys like Marquise Brown or Greg Dortch, who are definitely starts for me. Brown's been seeing a ton of volume, and Dortch from that slot role, I think it's a good opportunity to have a big week here without a lot of target competition for him. That's pretty much everything here on the Cardinals game. Let's go to Broncos and Raiders. The Raiders are 0-3, and now they're going up against one of the best defenses in the NFL right now. The Broncos give up the least amount of fantasy points to wide receivers. They're fourth in passing DVOA. I am not looking to play Mac Hollins, who some of you might have added off the wire. Hunter Renfrow, concussion, hasn't been practicing. I don't think he'll play. You have to play guys like Darren Waller and Devontae Adams. I'm not sitting them here, but god damn, I might be close to. This Broncos defense is unbelievably good. On the other side of things with the Broncos, I do like their pass pro here, and I do think that a guy like Courtland Sutton is absolutely someone you should play. I don't love the Raiders' pass defense. They have been pretty decent in terms of fantasy points, 8th, but their DVOA 23rd and their coverage grade at 55. I do think Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy are definitely guys to fire away because I don't have a lot of faith in the talent that this Raiders team has in the secondary. Patriots, Packers. This one will be very interesting. Like I'm not looking to back anyone that has Brian Hoyer throwing them the ball. That's certainly something I'm not willing to risk in week 4. I don't have much faith in them being able to throw the ball much. I think that he'll be, when he was on the start, his last start was 2020, I believe, against the Chiefs. Very short yardage look, ton of short yardage looks. We're not looking to hit, I'm going to be hitting many explosive plays here, and I'm not looking at, if he's living in the short yardage, that he's going to have plenty of volume. I think they try to run the ball against a Packers defense that's been pretty susceptible to the run game. Packers side of things, though, obviously it's the situation here is there's just a logjam of guys that could be available, and how do you navigate that? So we've got Lazard and we've got Watson practicing in a limited fashion. I would bet that those guys would be available. So we've got a ton of competition here in terms of targets. The Patriots haven't been great in coverage, but they are 5th in fantasy points allowed to wide receivers. Honestly, I don't feel good about starting any of these guys, but for the sake of the video, let's rank them. So I would probably go with Romeo Doubs as the number 1 player here. Actually, you know what? Let's scratch that. I'm probably going Lazard as the number 1 player here if healthy. He looks to be the red zone option that Aaron Rodgers has been looking to, and I think that's what you need to find here in a room that's crowded, is who's going to find the end zone. Romeo Doubs is definitely a number 2. I think he'll be out there exclusively on the outside. And then Christian Watson, your Randall Cobb, those guys are players I'm not looking to play in this matchup. But that would be how I would rank the position. But I would be fairly low on these guys. Like I'd probably rather play Richie James. I'd probably rather play Richie James than both of those guys in the Packers, believe it or not. Chiefs, Bucks, Sunday Night Football. Okay, so we've got a Bucks defense that is, of course, elite. One of the best coverage grades, 1st in passing DVOA, and then we've got a Chiefs offense that just the receiving group just hasn't been able to really separate themselves. Nobody has. Like, I think Juju's the number 1 option here, but I'm not looking to play him here against the Bucs defense. It's been fantastic. Juju, to me, is an option for you that needs to be in a good matchup to be able to play with confidence, at least. Marquez Valdez-Scantling's running the most routes on the team. If Mecole Hardman's getting back close to 100%, that's another option for Mahomes. It's really Travis Kelce that looks to be the guy in those important situations. So tough matchup. I'm looking to sit most of these guys on the road here in a game that I don't think is going to have a lot of points. On the other side of the ball, the Bucs, another interesting situation. The Bucs pass pro has not been good. That's a major problem for them. But the bigger problem is the absences at wide receiver. This is a team that's going to throw the ball a ton. They haven't been throwing it at quite the same rate. I believe Brady's averaging 35.5 passing attempts. Last year it was like 41. Mike Evans is, of course, going to be back. I'm definitely playing him. Then we have these other options here with Julio Jones, Russell Gage, Chris Godwin, all of them practicing in limited fashion so far this week. If Chris Godwin is playing and available, I don't think he will be, but if he is available, I think he's someone you play week in and week out when he's healthy. We've seen what he's been able to do. I know usually I'm not trusting the guys off the ACL, but this is such a high volume passing offense that I think we have to. Otherwise, if he's out, I'm probably looking to sit everybody else here. I don't have, with how banged up these guys are, with Julio especially, and Gage, I don't want to play them here just with the injury concern. And they have the injuries that they have, like the hamstring, groin type stuff, is stuff that they can easily re-injure in the middle of this game. So it's kind of a worrisome thing for me. Same goes with Chris Godwin. Honestly, I'd just be trying to play Mike Evans. Last game, Monday night, Rams, 49ers, two teams that are very, very familiar with each other, these coaches. Usually we got these divisional games. They tend to be very low scoring. I want to start with the Niners because Jimmy G against the Rams defense has actually been pretty good, averaging 260 yards passing and averaging 1.5 touchdowns. Not incredible numbers, but it's Jimmy G, right? So I think the passing game is their best option here. Running against this Rams defense and this front is very tough to do for a guy like Jeff Wilson, who's someone I will play in this tough matchup because of his volume, but I think the passing game will be what's successful. And the Rams, 29th in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position. So Brandon Ayuk, definitely someone I want to play. I liked what I saw early in the game against the Broncos, dwindled away late in the second half, but I think he's a reliable play right now. Debo, of course, is a guy we're starting. On the Rams side, this 49ers pass defense has been fantastic. 3rd in fantasy points allowed to the wide receiver position, 5th in passing DVOA, and have an 89.8 coverage grade. Been really, really good. I'm only looking to play Cooper Kupp here. Ben Skronik led the team in receptions last week. Allen Robinson, 5 targets, only 2 catches and like 28 yards. We're still trying to figure out where this Robinson role is. I'm not taking a chance here in a divisional game against a really good pass defense with Robinson. So I definitely would be looking to sit him. Cooper Kupp would be the only guy I want to play. Anyways, that's every single game we've covered. Let me know in the comments. I'm happy to answer as many questions as I can when it comes to start sit for these players or for any guys that you guys are considering specifically. If I don't get to you, join us on Twitch, 11 a.m. on Sunday on the OwnersBox Sports Twitch account. We're answering as many questions as we can. We're talking betting. We're talking everything that has to do with each and every slate. So go check us out there. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to like, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys in the next one.